Welcome to Mi Keamcha Yisrael. In Parashat Tzav, the Torah introduces a remarkable korban, the korban todah, the offering brought by one who has emerged from danger. Chazal teach that 4 individuals were obligated to bring this particular offering: one who crossed the sea, one who journeyed through a desert, one who recovered from grave illness, and one who was released from imprisonment, a person whose life, in essence, had been touched by salvation. But the Torah introduces a striking halakha regarding this offering. An ordinary korban shalamim could be eaten for 2 days and a night. Yet the korban todah, the offering of gratitude, had to be consumed within a single day. And not only that, together with the animal offering, the individual was required to bring 40 loaves of bread, an astonishing quantity, far more food than one person could ever conceivably consume. Why would the Torah require such an extraordinary amount? The Tsav offers a profound insight. Gratitude was never intended to remain private. A person bringing a korban todah would inevitably find himself with far more food than he could possibly finish alone. And so he would invite others, friends, neighbors, family. They would gather around the meal, and naturally someone would ask, "So, Nu, what's the occasion?" And the host would respond, "I was in danger, and Borei Olam delivered me." And in this way, the Torah transformed gratitude into something that became public. A moment of salvation became an opportunity for others to recognize the kindness of Borei Olam. But today, we no longer have the Beit HaMikdash. You can't bring a korban todah. Instead, Chazal granted us a completely different opportunity. 3 times each day we say the words Modim, Anachnu, Lach. We thank you. But those words are not meant to be recited mechanically. They're meant to invite reflection, to pause, to ponder, to contemplate, and to recognize the countless kindness Borei Olam bestows upon our lives. And sometimes those kindnesses are unmistakable. A visible salvation, a blessing that arrives openly. But there are other moments in life when events unfold in a manner that feels perplexing, even painful. A setback, perhaps a disappointment, something that appears at first glance to be a loss. And only much later does a person discover what seemed like misfortune was actually a precise path through which Borei Olam was delivering a beracha, blessing. There was once a Yid, a Baal Teshuvah, who owned a store right in the middle of bustling Machane Yehuda, a market in Yerushalayim. It was an exceptional location. The rent was considerable, but the steady flow of customers, as you know, rendered the business profitable. For years, the store provided him with a comfortable livelihood. Then one day, everything changed. Another Jew opened a shop directly across the street, and not just any shop, a store selling the exact same merchandise. Almost immediately, the consequences became evident. Customers who once frequented his store were now drifting across the street. Sales began to nosedive. The rent, however, remained exactly the same, and within months he realized something was deeply troubling. If the situation continued, the business would sadly collapse. Distressed and frustrated, he went to seek counsel from Rab Shmueli. Not far away, he poured out the entire story. "Another man opened up a store across from mine. He destroyed my livelihood." In a moment of raw frustration, he added, "If this had happened before I became a Baal Teshuvah, I might have killed him." Rab Shmueli listened attentively. Then he responded with a calm conviction. "What are you saying? Everything Borei Olam does is for the good. Borei Olam arranged this situation, not that man." The storekeeper struggled to accept these words. It was him, he insisted. Still, he trusted the Rav and asked, "No, what should I do?" Rav Shmueli offered simple guidance. Close the store and open another one in a place where the rent is lower. You may not earn as much as you did before, but you will still be able to sustain yourself. And reluctantly, the man followed the advice. He closed the store in Machane Yehuda and eventually opened a modest shop on the outskirts of Mea Sha'arim. The location was quieter, business was indeed slower, but the rent, like the rabbi said, it was manageable. Above the small shop lived an elderly woman who had no family and lived entirely alone. And over time, the shopkeeper became aware of her situation. Occasionally, he would bring her some food. At times, he assisted her with small expenses, and gradually, he began caring for her as though she were his own mother in years past. One day, the woman asked if he could come upstairs for just a few minutes, and she had something she wanted to share with him. The shopkeeper was weary after a long day of work, and for a brief moment he considered declining. But he dismissed the thought and he went upstairs. The elderly woman began recounting her life story, her past, her loneliness, the years that she had lived without anyone to care for her. Then she revealed something astonishing. Buckle up. Her uncle had recently passed away and had left her $5 million. She had no relatives. She had decided to leave the entire inheritance to the one person who had shown her genuine comfort and kindness, him. All she asked in return was that a room be dedicated in the yeshiva where Torah would be studied in her merit. Later, when the shopkeeper returned to Rav Shmuel and related the entire story, the Rav simply smiled. Didn't I tell you? Everything Borei Olam does is for the good. The challenge, the relocation, the encounter, every step was orchestrated by Borei Olam. Ladies and gentlemen, consider carefully what just unfolded. A man believed his livelihood had been destroyed. A competitor opened across the street. We hear it all the time. His customers vanished. His income collapsed. And from his perspective, it was apparent that someone had ruined his life. But Borei Olam perceived something he couldn't see. A lonely elderly woman, an inheritance waiting to be given, a future act of kindness that would transform his life. And so Borei Olam rearranged all the pieces. The store had to close. The move had to occur. The encounter had to take place. And what appeared to be a setback was in truth the doorway opening to Beracha. And sometimes that is precisely how Borei Olam operates in our lives. A door closes, a plan dissolves. Something we labored for suddenly disappears, and we ask ourselves, why is this happening? But then months later, sometimes years later, true, the pieces begin to align and suddenly we perceive it. What appeared to be loss was actually clear direction. What felt like frustration was actually protection. What seemed to be a problem was in fact a pathway to a blessing. And in that moment, when the entire picture finally becomes clear, a person understands something profound. Borei Olam was guiding every step along. That realization is the modern expression of a korban todah. To pause, to recognize, to look back at the journey and say, Borei Olam, thank you. Thank you for the blessing which we understood. And thank you even more for the moments we don't understand until the story finally reveals itself. Shabbat Shalom u'Mevorach.